Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of The Creative Exchange. I'm very excited because today we have Austin Evans and Jonathan Morrison. These are some of my favorite tech YouTubers. They do tech right. So tell me a little bit about what you do on YouTube, maybe some series that you guys have to provide some context to like the two people who don't know you.
The two people? That's a big,
you guys
bold
are big.
claim.
You guys are famous.
There's more than two people. Positive. Well, this man right here has wildly successful series all across YouTube, including how fast is a really expensive iMac and how to unbox really expensive iPhones and other products that I should probably have off the top of my head.
So now you do the intro for Austin.
No pressure. If you can outdo that masterpiece.
I feel like I just need to go to one of your videos. That's always my favorite. Like is Austin Evans worth it in 2018? That's probably one of his more popular series.
So Austin does a lot of things where he reviews tech and basically says, is this phone worth it? Is this computer setup worth it? And you just got engaged. So something really funny that people were tweeting to you is, where's the video of fiance? Is it worth it?
Oh, yeah.
I was laughing so hard at that. So is that episode coming up?
Not going to happen.
Did everything go smoothly?
It did. Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a surprise. So basically, we went out last weekend, and she didn't know what was going on, and she says she didn't, so I believe it. But basically we went out there. We did ATV riding. We went on a helicopter tour, and then we were hanging out on the beach. And I got one last surprise. Boom. So,
nice.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's bring it back to the good old days when you started YouTube. So you guys both started around 2010 or?
My first video was in April of 2009.
9? What about you, Jonathan?
I think I remember joining with the channel in March of 2011 or 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the environment like when you guys started making videos? Your first year, what was it like? Were tech YouTubers a thing?
Yeah, I think back in the day it was shout out to John Rettinger. Mm-hmm. Back in the day it was John for Lakers.
John for Lakers.
And Solder Knows Best. Those were the guys.
And Chris Perillo. It was different back then. I think there was a scene, but it was a much smaller scene. And I think in a lot of ways, right? There were very few people who were doing it to any kind of large level. And I think you think, oh, these big guys who we were looking up to had 30,000 subscribers or something. It was much, much smaller. And I think, at least for me, that is something that was really helpful because in those early days, because so few people were doing it, my terrible videos could kind of slide by and people still subscribed and watched. So I think that was one of the things that by the time that John came around and blew everyone away with crazy production.
His crispy videos.
With the crispy videos.
The crispiness.
I've been doing it for a couple of years. I was oh, right, I need to step it up. But a couple people were watching me already. So I was sweet. I've got the built-in advantage.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot less competitive, and everyone's so good now. That's the thing, there's so many freaking good creators out there. Mm-hmm. It was obviously a lot less competitive, and I feel like back then it was more of a time-sensitive thing. Especially going out and I remember it was always racing, Marquez and Mark and being on the East Coast. It was they have 3 hours on us, so they can get to the store and get something when it came out. I remember
it was, I think, iPad 2 launch. I camped out in front of Best Buy and interviewed people in line just so I have that video ready. So basically by the time I actually walked in and grabbed my iPad, I had 2/3 of my video ready.
Wow. How do you guys approach those types of videos now? Is it, I need to be the first one out, or is it more, I need to be the best? So maybe you take those extra hours, because it seems like so many people are making tech YouTube videos these days. So is it more of the thing of okay, how am I going to make this unique? Or do you think there is more value of being the first person or one of the first?
That's hard.
I think it's a mixture of both. You obviously just can't take 2 weeks with it, but it's trying to find the balance of making it good and get it up as quickly as possible. It never comes out where you're first in most cases.
Most of the time, take the iPhone for example.
Yeah.
Someone in Bulgaria got theirs accidentally shipped to them 2 days early and they did an unboxing or something. There's always something that kind of beats you there. I think it's sort of like you said, sort of finding that balance between not being necessarily first, but being early and good. Because I think people are still going to watch the video if you post it 3 hours after the first video or something. It's not a big enough deal to sort of completely change things. But sometimes there is a huge advantage in being first and having that exclusive. So a lot of times, when you hit product embargoes and stuff of 6 a.m. or whatever, it's hey, look, that's when you can go post the video. A lot of times when you can hit that embargo, that's a big advantage versus the idea of the new iPhone comes out, it's a free-for-all. Products are kind of flying everywhere.
Austin, you have 2.8 million subscribers. Jonathan, you have 2.4. I mean, you guys aren't playing around. I'm not saying that to Austin. I'm stating facts to add context. Like, they know what they're doing. But I want to ask, how long did it take you guys to hit the first 1,000 subscribers? Because right now with YouTube, there's a lot of conversation about, oh, you can't monetize your channel now without 1,000 subscribers or 4,000 hours of watch time. But in the beginning, especially when I was making videos, it was just like, I just got to get my stuff out there. I want to share it. Money wasn't even on my mind. But now YouTube is a lot about money because you see people flaunting their Rolexes and their Lamborghinis. Not so much you guys, but some of the vlogger community really relishes in that.
Vlogger community.
Yeah, exactly. So what was that like? Was it crazy? Do you remember that moment of like, oh my gosh, I have 1,000 subscribers or I have 10,000? What was that first aha moment of maybe this is a thing?
I remember the days like when you would like count, I gained 4 subscribers today.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that was cool. Was it 1,500 that you had to have to apply for a partner?
There was no specific number that I remember. I think it was just apply. Like people had like, oh, you should do it when you have like 500,000 views or 100 subscribers or 1,000 subscribers. I don't think YouTube ever like published a number, but I think 1,000 subscribers back in the day was kind of what most people recommended to apply for partner.
Because back in the day, you had to apply, guys.
Yeah.
It wasn't a given, exactly. So there was that challenge of, oh my gosh, can I get monetized?
I got denied my first time.
I got denied like twice. Yeah. So
I think I had 1,500 subscribers and like 1 million views before I actually got approved for partner program. And that was a little over a year after I had started making videos. So it took a long time subscribers came reasonably quickly for me. Like I was lucky I got a shout out for my first video. So I had like 100 subscribers. Like,
what was that shout out?
So I used to work with a guy who had a big, for the time, channel, which was like 2,000 subscribers or so. And I like wrote for his site and stuff. So he gave me a shout out. Yeah, I think I got like 100 subscribers like on my first video because he was like, yeah, go do it. Go
Heck
do it. You give it a try. But getting that first 1,000 was hard. But I think I agree with sort of your mentality of like, I didn't think of it like, oh, I'm going to get rich. Like no one was really making money. Like at that time, the partner program was a thing. There was probably a handful of people who had made it their full-time job at that point. But for me, it was like, yeah, maybe there's some sort of money in this at some point, but that really wasn't the focus for a long time. It was like, hey, look, this is something that's really fun to do. I want to give it a try.
In the first few years, was the tech community on YouTube kind of looked down upon by mainstream? Because I feel like just in the past maybe 2-3 years, the tech YouTubers are getting invited to conferences. They're getting products early. It's a thing now. But in 2012, were you guys taken seriously?
No.
Yeah. I think like anything, trying to explain to anybody you're a YouTuber, there's a little bit of that whole, the media was the official place to go.
Yeah.
So unless we were media or you had a website, then it really didn't count.
I was about to say, so I remember for CES, that's like, obviously the big trade show. I know I saw you there this year.
My first year. It was epic.
I think it was my 7th, which is,
wow.
Anyway, decisions. But I remember for my first 3 or 4, they just straight up did not accept YouTubers. Like, oh yeah, you're not accepted if you're like YouTuber or like Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Like that's your main following. You're like even going to consider it.
Which makes no sense.
It was crazy because the alternative was to have a website with like 1,500 like monthly views.
Oh my gosh.
So I would literally, a couple months before CES when I was about to register, I would go to this old site that I had worked on like a long time ago, post a couple articles, tweet it a couple times, get that 1,500 views, then submit it and get it in that way. So things have come a long way. Now they have a specific thing pretty much purely for like influencers and like, YouTubers and whatnot, where it's like, oh yeah, here's just the thing, just apply and here's your special cool badge.
Because those people want their products in your videos. Yeah. I mean, that most of the time is people will see that and be like, oh, I want to buy that. Where's the link?
But I can't be too upset though, because I think the scale was smaller back in the day, and I feel like there was some legitimacy that we had to earn. I mean, I don't think it's fair to say like, oh, we're this new upstart thing, we come out of nowhere, and hey, give us all the super cool access and everything. I think it was something that, in hindsight, did need to be earned, and I feel like at this point, I feel pretty comfortable with like the way that a lot of brands and companies and like places treat us. I feel like it's like, oh yeah, that's fair. Like we don't get like crazy special access, but we're not laughed at or ignored or kicked out anymore, which I'm not complaining about that.
Jonathan, do you have a favorite trade show of sorts or maybe event that's like, oh,
I mean, I'm gonna get called a fanboy, but the Apple events are cool.
100%. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Okay, let's dwell a little bit on the Apple versus Android.
Here we go.
If you want to say, what is your go-to phone? Like,
just the same one you have.
okay, so it's iPhone 10, Austin, iPhone 10. Okay, I do this too. I talk about other phones. There's aspects of Android software, Android phones. I love Samsung phones. There's things in them that I'm like, oh, this is cool. I would be able to use this, but basic things like iMessage, AirDrop, and just the workflow with all my other computer, the environment, it works. But if you have this discussion in a YouTube video, you get ripped apart. Android versus iPhone, it's hard to navigate on the internet. How do you guys navigate that?
You don't discuss it. Yeah. It's like the first rule of Fight Club is you don't discuss Fight Club. I feel like the way I get around it is just I don't do an iPhone versus Android video very common. And when I do, I like pick specific aspects. Like I don't go like, oh, this is why the iPhone's better, this is why Android's better. Like, oh, look, I like the camera on this phone, I like the screen on this phone, but I don't get into like, oh yeah, and then this one runs iOS and this one runs Android, and you like what you like and make your decisions there. I think the less you sort of address it directly, the less angry the fanboys get, I guess.
Honestly, I think it's just like there's like arguments for both sides. Like anybody who uses an iPhone for an extended period of time and hops over to Android, it's gonna feel awkward. And at the same time, like you see a lot of comments of someone who uses Android forever and hops over to an iPhone, and that feels awkward. And like you said, it's the smaller things that maybe people don't understand. Again, I think you nailed it with iMessage, AirDrop, and then for me, like honestly, like my biggest thing is like I've yet to find like a Twitter app on Android that I like.
I just use the stock one on Android.
Tweetbot, so and there are good things about both sides, and I feel like everyone carries the Pixel now because of the camera.
The camera's amazing on the Pixel.
Yeah.
Which is weird because like people used to carry iPhones.
Yeah.
They'd use an Android phone and carry an iPhone as like their Instagram camera, and we kind of saw that shift this year with the Pixel.
What are your thoughts on last year's phones? With the Pixel, I was stoked on the camera. But I think they've released an update to fix this. But straight out of the box, the audio was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
It was awful. And like when something just right out of the box, there's a feature, something as big as that's messed up, that's just kind of an automatic turn off for me. But there's so many good aspects of the Pixel that gets me excited for the next version of it. And so what was kind of maybe one phone that surprised you this past year and one phone that you're really looking forward to this next year that maybe is going to have some improvements?
I don't know if it was so much like surprised. I think it was almost like, we had like an amazing year. It was kind of like, I wish we could take elements from each phone. Like there was just
the Franken phone.
There was always something like that just made each phone just you wanted a little bit more. The Pixel, obviously the camera's amazing, and then the stock Google is amazing. I don't think it looks as good as like the Galaxy S8 did.
That hardware on the S8 is phenomenal.
As much I have an iPhone 10 in my pocket, but I still think the S8 was the best looking phone of 2017.
2017.
Yeah. And I think just maybe refinements on that with the Pixel, like to kind of pick up where they slacked a little bit. iPhone 10 too, same thing. I was disappointed with the front-facing selfies compared to like the Pixel.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, wishing you could almost build like the super phone.
Exactly.
I will say though, hardware-wise, I love the iPhone 10. I love the idea that it's made of steel instead of aluminum. It has that heft, and especially when they brought the glass back. You know what I'm talking about. The word heft is okay.
Choice word.
No, I love the hardware on the iPhone 10. The screen is great. I don't mind the notch. Like I know I sound like a fanboy, but the iPhone 10. I
don't mind the notch either, and I like the swiping.
Oh, I love the swiping.
Navigation in between apps is fabulous. Yeah. I love it's really great. But Face ID, honestly, I like Touch ID better.
Oh, I thought you were about to go a different way there.
No, I like Touch ID better because I wear sunglasses a lot too.
Oh, okay. There's actually a way around that. If you go into the Face ID settings, you turn off attention, you can use it with sunglasses.
Really? But then can anyone with sunglasses get into my phone?
No. So basically, the attention thing means that you have to look at the phone.
Gotcha. But
basically, you could have your eyes closed and I could put the phone in front of your face and it would do it. Basically, it just disables that check.
Gotcha. So you like Face ID better than Touch ID?
So I was on record multiple times ahead of time saying Face ID there's no way it's going to be as good, blah, blah, blah. But after I actually used it, I was like, you know what?
I love this.
It's actually pretty good. No, like, I know that a lot of people have issues. I mean, my fiance, she has problems with it all the time. Like, I feel like it works like 30% of the time for her.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. But I think it's because like you have to have it in that sort of that sweet spot of distance. Like if it's too close, it won't work. If it's too far, it won't work. You kind of have to have it like right there. And for me, I feel like it works like 98% of the time. And even some like small things, like sometimes, I'm like eating, I want to like check something. I don't have to like put my gross like finger on the home button. I just look at the phone like,
I
okay,
guess
cool.
there's things like that because if you were wearing gloves, Touch ID wouldn't work. So there are aspects of that I like the iPhone 10.
I am really surprised at how great that phone is. Like, it's not perfect, and I agree that I think that it would be nice if you could build this Franken phone with all these different pieces, but I feel like as a total package, not counting price, which obviously is obscenely expensive, but if you're able to discount that, I feel like the iPhone 10 is a great sort of blend of all this different types of hardware, performance, battery life, all that kind of stuff. I feel like it's just like a great solid package, and it's a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah. So we were actually on a little talk show together for the Huawei phone.
Yes, we were.
That was super fun. During that, I was like, this would be an awesome podcast group. And we're doing it right now, which is
was
so
that
exciting.
the idea for this podcast?
I kind of was like, this was fun.
Oh, wow.
And so I kind of want to do it again, but be able to talk about anything. But Huawei is a company that, is huge overseas. Sure. But I could tell recently this past year, they've really been putting an effort to really kind of like get their grip on the US market. And so these are phones that, aren't as good as the iPhone 10, the Note 8.
Ways, yeah.
They have the same features, but they're also at the price point of almost half the price. And so, we got to play around with these phones. I was like, oh, these are actually really good for especially that price point. And so do you guys think that there's a huge market here for those kinds of devices, or is everyone saving up for that Galaxy and iPhone upgrade?
I think there's a huge market for budget devices. And I say budget, I mean flagships these days are $700, $800, $900, $1,000.
Which is crazy.
It's completely crazy, right? I think that when you consider that you can spend $300, $400, $500, or even like as little as like $200 on a phone that was going to be 90% as good, that's a really compelling value for a lot of people. I think it's hard to say, hey mom, you should spend $800 extra because the camera's a little bit better or the build quality is a little bit better. It's for most people, like I think we are all kind of sort of power users. I feel like we, use our phones for, to capture video for the channel or whatever the case is. And I think it's a little bit easier for us to justify that. But for most people, there's no reason why you should ever go and spend $1,000 on a phone when you can spend $300 to get something that's essentially going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I just remember being so excited to go on the internet. I think my first smartphone was a Motorola Q.
Yo.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
My first phone I had a Rizzer, not a
Wait,
Razor. So
Austin's getting ready to
What?
all of my friends had the Razor, the Motorola Razor.
Yeah, the coolest phone of 2005.
And then people started getting the pink ones, and I'm like, what? I want in on this. And I remember, the Razor was actually my second one. But that was basically the slide version of the Razor.
Oh.
But my first one was the Motorola Rocker, where they're
back when they hated vowels.
right. Their thing with that phone was this is the hip and happening phone to listen to music on.
Oh, yeah.
It has storage for those MP3 files. Ooh. So I thought, but it was clunky, And then I got the slide Motorola that was the Razor, and I was like, this is cool, but it's not the Razor.
I was about to say, I can't take you seriously every time you say Razor.
It's a thing. I'm gonna be embarrassed if that's not what it's called, but it was spelled, or maybe Riser, maybe that.
What was it like?
It was RIZR. So it was basically this isn't the Razor, but
it's like
this is
one step down.
Kind of, but it was a slide. And so I think the competitor to that was the chocolate. I don't know if you remember LG chocolate.
Yeah.
So it was similar to the chocolate, and that's what the next cool. So I was never a cool kid, but I was very close. So what were y'all's first phones?
So mine was actually a Nokia 3310.
Okay.
But it wasn't mine. It was one that basically I stole from my dad all the time. It was basically mine, but that was the first phone that I used on a regular basis. But believe it or not, the first cell phone that I owned and paid for with my own money was actually an iPhone 4S.
Wow.
I was probably, when was that? I was probably 17, 18. No. When was 4S? It was 2011?
Sure.
I was probably 19 before I actually had. No, it must have been, right?
Yeah, probably.
It was a while ago. That was the
Yeah.
first like proper smartphone that I ever owned. Before that, it was just like a flip phone or like whatever that like my parents would let me use. So that was like that first time where I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm cool. I got like an iPhone. But
Heck yeah.
I played with lots of phones. And I had like some other phones, but I didn't actually pay for the service on them. So it was always like kind of like you know basically using it as like an iPod or something.
Right.
So that was the first time that I like properly went all in on a smartphone. And yeah, it was a nice upgrade.
And John, what was the name of yours again?
Motorola Q.
Cute. Could you play Snake on it? I mean that, or was that after the Snake?
That was after Snake.
Okay.
So like you
there's
lost.
no such thing as after Snake.
Oh.
There is.
Because that was a moment. I remember playing Snake on my mom's phone.
That was like the reason you got one of those.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Exactly. What were the capabilities of that phone? Do you remember?
It had the full on like BlackBerry style keyboard.
Oh, okay.
So
Rest in peace, BlackBerry.
yeah. What's
It's
the
actually not dead yet.
I mean, I know. I saw them at CES, but when I saw them, I was like,
Like half of like one other booth. It's like, oh man.
Yeah.
I remember when they had like the biggest booth here.
Oh man, that's.
so you had a full
flashback. Keyboard, internet. Like I was just stoked to go on ESPN. Honestly. That
get the
was-
game updates.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, good times. That's amazing. Yeah, the tech in the palm of our hand is just insane.
Yeah.
We're all a little spoiled now.
Oh yeah,
Totally spoiled.
100%. And now it's like I'll spend $200 more for like one more megapixel in the camera. I feel like we've kind of reached a point where things are just getting a little bit better. And I mean, what is the big next revolution? Is it battery? Because I want my phone to last a month.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What do you think about the battery on the iPhone 10?
So for me, I'm good if my phone lasts the entire day.
Yeah.
And this, for the most part, does. I carry a brick around with me wherever I go. But for the most part, it's good. I think my iPhone 8 Plus was actually a little bit better.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yes, which I sometimes do miss that, and I do miss the bigger screen. But I like the way the iPhone 10 feels in my hand. I did want all of the capabilities in the Plus iPhone into a smaller form factor, and that's what we get with the 10, so I'm satisfied.
So I'm curious because I'm pretty much in the same boat. I feel like the 8 Plus was a little bit better. I do think that the 10 is a lot better than like the 7 and like 7 Plus and whatnot. But for me, I charge my phone every night. So if it gets through a long day, and I've had like some long days with the 10 where like, I'm like up early, like flying, all that kind of stuff, and it still sort of survives to the end of the day. But you really feel like you want longer than a day, like you want to get like multiple days on a charge?
That would be amazing. I mean, I think that's our next. Don't you think that's the next thing is battery? I mean, but phones are constantly getting smaller.
You're dealing with physics there, though.
Exactly.
Like, there's only so big the batteries can get. Like, I think they have continued to improve, and I think there's still more breakthroughs. But I think there will be a certain point where you can't go that much more. Like, batteries get like better like by 10% a year, whereas all these other things, it completely explodes. So it's hard for me to imagine a battery being like 5 times better than like the same sort of form factor anytime soon.
This is just a subtweet to Elon. So Elon, if you're hearing us out here, just make our batteries
Did
amazing.
you just refer to this podcast as a subtweet?
Yeah, that's getting kind of weird, I guess. I mean, what would the word be for like, I don't know, a subtweet? That's where you're like talking about someone, but you don't add them, right?
I'm just not that cool, I guess.
I think
don't know.
subtweeting in my mind is always like salty. Like there's some
Oh,
positive.
yeah, you gotta have some salt in there.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Well, Elon, I'm sorry for being salty towards you.
There's no salt
I'm
there.
not.
It's
There's
all
no
good.
salt. Speaking of that, did you guys put in your pre-order for the Elon Musk Boring Company flamethrower?
I did.
I
Did
actually
you?
did not, no.
So, Jonathan, what are your plans for this flamethrower? Please share.
I actually
The legal ones, at least.
So we
Yeah.
have an illegal. Well, I don't know if it's illegal, but we have a flamethrower that's not like up to the. It probably shoots longer than 10 feet.
Can confirm it is fully legal.
I think the initial plan was to do some sort of like slow motion video with it,
That's good.
and we never did it because it was illegal and we needed a
Completely
permit
legal.
and like a firefighter.
Not true.
I even reached his brother's a firefighter, so we were even like toying around the idea of getting his brother to like flame stuff up. And I don't know, $500 for a legal flamethrower.
Why not?
Kind of be dumb not to.
Why not?
It's cool. I love the idea of just everything Elon Musk does on these like stupid, goofy things. Like, oh yeah, let's just sell hats or like do the Boring Company or just whatever. Like, I just love the idea that someone like it's like I feel like everyone thinks that if you were a billionaire, you would do this kind of stuff, but he actually is doing it, and I have mad respect for that.
He's incredible. Yeah. Gotta love the guy. So this is kind of a depressing segue.
Oh, no.
But Speaking of fire, so Austin.
Oh.
I know.
Just seen that one coming.
But I guess 4 years ago, you had a really bad accident where your entire place burned down, right? And then, just in life, like medical issues, stuff happens. And so when those terrible things happen, there's almost this responsibility you feel as an internet personality to, when you're on camera every single week, you kind of have to bring your internet family into your life and kind of update them and like, oh man, I missed, last week's video because of something happened. So when you guys are going through like challenging things in your life, how do you like navigate your job, your YouTube role? Because, traditionally a 9 to 5, maybe you could take some time off. Their job isn't reliant on having an audience. So sometimes when you go through challenging things, it's hard being, you have to go on YouTube and be a personality. So how is that? Like, do you find YouTube as a space where, I have people who care about me and this is good? Or is it kind of like, kind of a burden in a way? It's that line of how much do you share? And
I feel like I've changed on this over the years. I think I used to share way more than I do now. I think that as I've gotten a little bit older, I found that I appreciate some privacy. I appreciate not sharing everything, Like I almost, like you said, there's almost sort of like the other personality, right? Where, when you're on camera, when you're very excited, obviously you have to be a more elevated, more amped up version of yourself. But I feel like in my personal life, I don't need to really share that. Like I feel like I kind of just sort of value some of that stuff. But I think the idea of when there's something like that, like the fire or some of like your health issues, I think that there's no way that you can't completely separate the two. Mm-hmm. I think that, for me, it was like I took a few weeks off and sort of everyone was super helpful, this guy included, to kind of get me back up on my feet.
You guys have a good squad here.
We have a great squad. Hashtag Team Crispy.
Can I just say my only regret out of all that was carrying a 30-pound safe in the airport?
What? Explain.
So obviously we had the idea, like all the tech community got together. We got him an iMac, or not, sorry, I'm thinking an iMac Pro, a Mac Pro. That was the trash can when it came out. And this safe company reached out to me and said, "Oh, well, like." It
wasn't a safe. It was a NAS. But it was basically, it was like in
like a fireproof.
It was fireproof, but it was like hard drives and stuff inside. It wasn't like an actual safe.
Gotcha.
So it was like, it was a fireproof hard drive. And they reached out and I said, sure, like I'll take that and it'll be a good idea to take with me. I brought it as a carry-on. And it was where the airport over there was huge. Or I don't know where I was, but I was just like trying to make my flight. And the thing was like 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And I had no good way to carry it. And I'm just like dying. I almost left it.
Austin doesn't need this.
Yeah. But the thing was, we had nowhere, like, I couldn't just ship it over there because it was all supposed to be a surprise.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I mean, that's so cool because the tech community really, did rally around you. And so there's a sense of community with YouTube, especially when you're a creator, you collab with people, and, you guys work in the same building. I think, especially you guys, you have a cool thing over here.
Yeah, no, I think it's super helpful because, for example, when I moved out to LA a couple years ago, this guy was hugely instrumental. And for real though, like I moved out here, I didn't have any friends or family or whatever besides these guys. And so it was really cool to be able to sort of immediately come in, sort of fit in and sort of build out everything from there. So I think that the idea of sort of having all these good friends who are supportive not only in personal lives but professionally, sort of like on YouTube and stuff, it's been a huge asset to me multiple times. Not just obviously the super recognizable things like the fire, but even like little things like I crashed in this guy's office. Like when I used to come out and visit in LA and I used to work out of your office and stuff. Like having like that kind of support is completely huge.
Yeah. With YouTube, you also get a lot of opportunities to do some live events, or maybe you do shows. Are there any embarrassing stories because when you make videos, you get to edit yourself, and that's a thing that I enjoy. I like that. But sometimes you give talks. Sometimes you do talk shows of sorts. And that added pressure is kind of nerve-wracking sometimes. So do you guys have any stories about any disasters or funny moments?
Why are you laughing, Evan?
Yeah, Austin, I feel like you have something to share.
Either he's got a good story or he's going to call me out in a second.
No, I'm not going to call you out. That would be for a different time. There was this one thing I did fairly early when I actually started doing kind of like you said, like the sort of the bigger things. I was actually shooting a commercial on like a set. There's like 50 people there. It was super professional. I was like completely surrounded by actors. I think you know what I'm talking about now. So I was there, and basically
Jonathan
what
is
happened
dying
was
over here.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Like, oh, here's the script. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, oh yeah, by the way, so it's going to be 5 minutes all the way through, no takes. Like, you have to memorize the entire thing.
What?
As I'm going back and forth with an actor, and like people are coming up and the whole thing. I was like,
You didn't know that beforehand?
I knew that the night before. I had the script, but I didn't know until the morning that we were doing it. I thought we were going to do like we do on
by
YouTube.
scene, like
each
cuts.
line, and this is why blah 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 blah. Try it again. This is why blah blah blah. Like, that was what I was expecting. I'd expected okay, so here's your cue. Come in, hit your mark, turn, say the line, smile, do this. Like, it was like fully like scripted out, and I had no idea. So me being stupid 20-year-old me or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I can do that. And I completely and totally bombed in front of like 50 people. Like, the script supervisor was reading me lines like each time, because like I had like bits and pieces memorized, but I didn't have the whole thing.
Right.
So literally there's like 50 people here. I'm like on like a set with like 8 actors, and they're like, oh wait, say your line again. It's this is why blah blah blah. I'm like, and this is why blah, what was it again? Like, it was the most embarrassing thing ever. And it was such a good wake-up call for me to realize that, you're doing YouTube when you think that, oh, I'm so good at this and everything's great and this is awesome. And then you actually step on a real professional thing and you completely and totally, I don't know if I can swear here, but you could completely and totally sort of get things handed to you. And so it's like, that was one of those moments where now I had to reconsider ever saying yes to that kind of stuff until I actually learned. And that was actually one of the things that made me want to do more live stuff just to get more practice, but also just to kind of sort of appreciate that you might have a specific set of skills, but it does not necessarily apply to the big leagues until you really actually put the effort in. It's not fun.
Goodness. Well, before Jonathan, because I'm sure you have stories, but did that commercial come out?
Yes.
Okay, so can people find it on the internet?
Yes.
Can I say the funniest thing about that?
Yes, please.
Let's not reference the actual.
Do you not want to say it? Okay.
It is a thing. If you look hard enough, you can find this.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it was. They heavily edited it.
There's
thankfully.
an Easter egg though.
What's the Easter egg?
Oh, there's a shot in the actual live commercial where I'm holding the script because I couldn't remember my line. So you literally see it's like an over the shoulder shot where you can see me with a piece of paper in my hand.
It gets better too though.
Oh,
It's, you know how they give the lower thirds?
you're getting me in trouble here.
Like on the actual commercial, it says youtube.com/Duncan33303.
Which is like my old username. Oh man, it was.
Which he runs and hides from.
Mistakes were made. Lots of mistakes were made.
But you learned. That's what's important.
Yeah. No, it actually. To be fair, I look back at that, and as embarrassing as it was, and it was so embarrassing to bomb in front of that many people.
Right.
For I was on set for hours. It wasn't just I'm gonna do this for 15 minutes. I was there for a long time. But that really made me sort of realize that I needed to focus more on live, because at that point I was scripting all of my videos.
Really?
So, and you would think that would make it easier, but it was a script I had written. I had it right in front of me. It was I would do it line by line. It wasn't like I had to memorize 5 things and do this whole set.
Right.
So it was really sort of influential on getting me to take this kind of stuff seriously and really realize that, hey, as things get bigger and bigger, I'm going to need to do more live stuff. I'm going to need to be able to be more sort of spontaneous. I need to be able to kind of learn a lot of these skills.
Right.
So I went from going oh yeah, it's totally something I can do, to I'm an idiot. I need to learn everything
Humbled
right
you
now.
of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Jonathan?
I don't know if it's live. I do have probably 2 humbling stories, I think. We'll start first, probably the note. It was... Which is the one that exploded?
7.
The 7.
No, 7.
Yes.
So that was a big thing. I got a chance to, work really hard. I got to see the note really early. I went to South Korea for a week, worked with Samsung, and then we went to Barcelona to shoot the commercials. So it was one of those things where it was this awesome experience, and you put all this work in, and I got a chance to write out 5 commercials on YouTube.
You did all the work on that.
Yeah.
Or a huge chunk. I know you're working with a production company,
Wow.
but you were
amazing.
gone in the vortex for a couple months there.
Yeah, I was gone for a month working on that. So it's you put all this blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it was cool. It was probably the coolest thing I did at the time. And the phone started blowing.
That must, oh my gosh, my heart. That would be so depressing.
Any of that?
You texted me first. You're hey, did you see this?
I was
So, did none of that go live?
It went live.
They
Okay,
took it down,
did,
though,
but then
didn't
Yeah, they removed it because of all that.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I was getting on a plane and I was like reading like The Verge or something, and it's like, oh, there's this like story of like a Galaxy Note 7 like blew up on like a train or a plane or something. I was like, oh, that's not good, and like I texted it to you,
And I was like, nah, it's no big deal. And
like a
then
week later, I think they were like
blew up
recalled
in a-
and
blew up in
banned.
a-
And
So that's one of those.
At least you did your job well, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you made. I saw some of that stuff before I went live. Like it looked. Well, I mean, obviously after the NDA was
Yes.
done, of course. But as soon as it was okay for me to see it, I saw all that stuff and it looked really good.
It was cool. I was proud of it. So just one of those humbling things. I think the other learning experience was this might be an exclusive story.
Oh.
We did an iPhone parody back in the day. Featuring this
Tell me
man.
more.
This might be interesting too, because like obviously on your end too, I think that's a world you dive into with brand deals and stuff. And that was kind of the first real brand deal we ever put together. It was supposed to be.
That was for iPhone 6.
Yeah.
That would have been 2014.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be a spot for LG. And, we were young, naive, there was no contracts, and we kind of just pitched it, they approved it. We flew everyone out to New York, shot this video, and like I remember going back and forth, like they weren't happy with what we were doing, and it was one of those things where we shot the video, we edited it, like we were all in the hotel room like dying of laughter.
We put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah.
So this is basically for, if you haven't seen it, you know how the old Apple videos would be like Johnny Ive on like a white background. It's
Yes,
like,
yeah.
this is the most revolutionary thing.
I miss it.
So that was basically what we were going after, because I think that was the last year they did. It was actually the iPhone 6 year, I think. So we basically did one where it was a complete parody, right? So it was a bunch of us. It was like Judner, it was like Lou, it was Marquez, it was you and I. And essentially we're all in this like endless white background, and we're pretending to be like, the marketing people or the designers or all these kinds of things. And it was fun. I know we, like you said, we put a ton of effort into it, like to edit it, and like we put all this kind of time. It was so cool. And then things went south.
I was very anxious to upload it, so I uploaded it without a green light.
Surprise, surprise.
No. Yeah, if you guys aren't aware of like brand deals and working with brands and how it works, there is a process. There is an approval process. So sometimes that requires multiple cuts. And so once you feel like you have your final product, you have to send it to the company first and then wait for their green light and certain links that you have to post to do it. So you guys posted it premature.
Although I would say probably the first step is to get a signed contract from said brand saying that, yes, you can do this video.
Honestly, it was one of those things, like it was so much fun. Like it was like, I don't care.
Right.
It was expensive though.
Yeah. I mean,
So what happened?
The funniest part about this is the reason they got upset and didn't like it, and LG, obviously, we worked together a million times since, so there's all good there, but they got upset at we went through this insane process of picking names for ourselves.
You were Rocky Dubasaur.
Yeah. Judner was Quentin.
I was Sam Green?
What was Marquez?
Oh, Dr. Dre. That was a really dumb joke in hindsight. I regret all of my part of that.
Oh my goodness.
Also, you like made all of the Marquez takes unusable because
I kept laughing. Okay, so everyone was hilarious, and me being a supportive friend couldn't help but laugh when someone would do something outrageously hilarious. And maybe that might have affected a take or two. Who knows? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's impossible now, but I mean, theoretically.
So back to the reason they got upset is like under my name, like we all had like, positions at Apple. You were a pervert, right?
Oh my god.
I don't actually. Oh, I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Mine was.
I was playing Johnny Ive, so I was like trying to be a little too attached to the phones, maybe.
Right.
Mine was kind of a dick.
Oh my god.
And
There was one more.
yeah, well, Judner was like headphone lead or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got upset because of my subtitle, kind of a dick. The weirder part was Austin didn't have pants on in that video.
Oh yeah, that was probably the other part that they weren't happy with, and that there's this dramatic shot toward the end where I'm like caressing the phone.
They didn't say anything about that.
They didn't. They really didn't.
No, that was the weirdest part about that whole video.
Oh.
That is a gift that
gosh.
exists on the internet, by the way.
Okay, so lessons learned. Wear pants in videos.
No, that's fine actually.
Oh, okay,
The
so
lesson we
that's
learned is that
fine.
you should never wear pants actually, because
Okay.
that's totally fine. Apparently.
Yeah, adds a little spice to the
Just
videos.
don't say that you're kind of a dick and you're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. Oh my goodness. That's funny though. There's ups and downs with it all, you know. In the beginning, was it just you guys, or did you have a person that was helping with videos? Because I know now, you know, Austin, you have Ken, Wes, Jonathan, you have like Richard, awesome people helping you guys out. But in the beginning, was it just you? And what was the moment that you said, I have to get help? Was it a certain amount of videos? Was it when you wanted to make things more crispy? What was that moment like? Because that's big when you let go of the creative process, or some of it.
I mean, for me, that happened probably 7 years after I started. So I held on to it for a long time. During that period, I did everything myself, with a few exceptions. Like sometimes I would do like larger projects where like I would have like someone like help me shoot a little bit, but like 99% of my videos were shot and completely done by myself. But it was really when I moved out here and saw your process, because at that point, a couple years ago, you had already had, 3 or 4 people helping? Mm-hmm. You had a decent sized team. I was like, oh, I like this. So that was kind of the point where I slowly started handing off to our good buddy, Mr. Ken Bolito.
Shout out to Ken.
Shout out to Ken, which was maybe not the smoothest experience. I distinctly remember on his first day on the job, I got frustrated and took the camera away from him because he's going too slow. Because he also forgot like a microphone and like the lens and a bunch of stuff. But you know, it's all good now. We live, we learn. But that was the kind of the point where I realized that I was the bottleneck in every sort of sense of the word as far as sort of producing videos. And I remember that, especially after the fire, I kind of, this is gonna sound dumb, I like had like a hermit like year where essentially I like got a new apartment, essentially locked myself in it for like a year and did nothing but make videos.
Wow.
And I know, I'm serious. Like, I mean, like I would like go off like Taco Bell runs, like, you know, like every day, or like I would order pizza so I could stay inside for a couple of days to like work on videos. Like I was super, super focused. And obviously I had zero social life or anything. Like I would go visit like my parents like once a week and say hi, and then that was it. But that was sort of like the best time for growth for me, because I was so focused in cranking so many videos out. But obviously that was not sustainable in any way whatsoever. So now that, you know, I've actually moved out here and that we've built a team and stuff, I actually get to go home at a reasonable time and we still get to make videos. So I'm very happy with that.
He's probably done a better job at that. I have a really bad like problem of not letting go. As much as like everyone that we have here is amazing help. I think part of it is like I enjoy it, the shooting and editing. So if anything, yeah, Austin's done an amazing job in terms of like using that team to handle different angles. That's probably the thing I need to improve most on, is just letting go a little.
Let go, man.
Yeah.
It's hard because not only do you have to give jobs to people, but you have to provide that framework, because, you know, maybe Ken forgot some things, but did you tell him exactly what you need?
No,
you know, so
it's
not. Yeah, I think that's a big part of the process that I'm learning as well, is you can't hand off work to someone and expect them to just know what you're thinking in your head. And that's especially with editing. I've been having help, but in the beginning it was really hard because I have such a distinct way of doing things, and if it's not exactly that way, then it's frustrating. But
it was 3 frames off.
Exactly. But you have to step back and kind of find something that works for you. So now, luckily, the person who helps me edit, she was a fan before, so she really knows my style, which is awesome. But then I'll have Final Cut of it. So she'll send me the Premiere files, and, you know, I have that final say of what goes, and that gives me comfort. So
yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, so that was, an editor was sort of the last position that I filled, because basically
it's the hardest thing to delegate.
It was really difficult, because basically slowly between like Ken and I, we like started like passing back different things. Like, you know, he took over the thumbnails, obviously he took over like shooting and stuff. The editing took me a long time to give up, and I think that's probably the main thing, because you've never really given up editing, right?
No, a lot of shooting too, yeah. I have a problem.
Well, it's not a problem. It's you have a love for it, you know? I mean, because this is something, it's cool that we get to do this for our jobs.
Yeah,
it's
I think
crazy.
That's like that balance though, right? Of like, you know, trying to do what you love versus what's right for the system, right? That's probably my biggest downfall, not making enough videos or frequently.
I love the idea. Nothing makes me happier than looking at that YouTube, the video manager, and seeing like 4 crispy uploads queued up and ready to go live at any moment. I'm like, yes, yes.
Speaking of crispy, let's talk specifics, okay? So let's talk about work.
You signed the NDA,
right? No. Oh, no. You can share as much as you want, but recently you posted a video with, you know, the iMac Pro, the 18-core, 128 gigabytes of memory, which is insane, and it has a 4 terabyte SSD in it. And in that video, you mentioned that you shoot on your Red 8K RAW. Holy crap. And then you converted ProRes, edit in Final Cut. But tell me what that process is like. How long, of course, computers are stepping up, so you're able to really do things at a faster rate. But when did you switch to 8K RAW, and how has that process been? Is it every video? Is it special videos?
If we want to get like technically nerdy for a second,
Yes, please.
The 8K really didn't happen until the iMac Pros came out. With the newer Red cameras, across all of them, even the Scarlett W, which is amazing, they'll shoot ProRes internally. So that's probably like the coolest thing about those. You lose the RAW flexibility, but if you're, I mean, they're amazing looking cameras, and ProRes is just so much easier to edit. So really up until iMac Pros came out, we would rarely shoot like 8K RAW, just because the workflow was a nightmare.
For a while was 4K. Is that like,
Yeah.
when did you switch to 4K?
You were first, I think, weren't
Were you?
That was when the C100 was popular,
Okay.
and then the GH4 came out.
Yeah.
And I regretted it because the C100 looked so good, and then
Those skin tones. Those
Yeah.
Canon skin tones.
Yeah.
so it was one of those things. And again, too, I think I'm gonna like pivot a little bit right now and just go on the record and say, like, I understand that all of this is completely unnecessary for what we do. And you know, someone like yourself, and I know you hang out with like Peter McKinnon and stuff, like they do incredible stuff with 1080p and Canon cameras. And I think the thing that some people overlook, like seeing Red cameras, and for Linus, that was a huge reason. It wasn't that they needed it, but like Brandon, it was a way to keep him happy. And for a lot of us, you know, like we get excited over gear. So it's less about like, you know, it's not like we need to shoot a Hollywood movie, but for most of us, this is our life and our hobby. And like, we don't have necessarily like money that we go throw at, like myself, you know, I don't drink, party, and like, I'm not really hugely into cars.
Yeah.
But Red cameras,
Heck yeah. Well, it keeps it fun. It keeps it interesting. Because I remember I was using one of the first camera, the first DSLR I ever used was my dad's Canon T3i. And I remember the day I got enough money to upgrade to my own Canon 7DD. It was when that first just came out. And I got my first lens. It was like the pancake lens, the 40 millimeter, I think. That was so exciting to me.
Yeah.
And it just kind of started, I mean, I've always been into gear because I've played electric guitar for over 10 years. So before cameras, it was what pedals, what amps am I playing through, guitars. And now every time I get to switch to a camera, it's so fun. And of course it is keeping things crispy for the audience, but it also is just, it's fun.
yeah.
I was gonna say,
It's-
like,
yeah.
I noticed your secret talent of being a musician.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same idea, right? Like,
It's almost like two people at this desk share that
Do
same
you play
secret
guitar?
talent.
Maybe.
Oh my gosh, next time, jam session with Jonathan.
But it's like the idea of like, you don't need like, you know, a fancy guitar or amp, but there's something like creatively fulfilling about plugging in and then it sounds good. Obviously you need to work hard and get good, but just the same idea puts you like in a creative mindset. I think that's...
And it's not totally unreasonable to have these higher end cameras. I mean, think about the Samsung stuff, or you've done a lot of like high end stuff that didn't even land on the channel that you actually did specifically for brands. A lot of times they'll say, hey, we want a Red camera, we want something expensive. And it's like, okay, cool, I already have one. It's not like I've got to go and spend 20 grand to go rent this thing for a month to produce the video.
I think that was cool. Like, we got a chance to do something pretty big with Philips, where it was a lot of like commercials that lived on their site and their channels. And a lot of the times too, like, it adds a layer of legitimacy when you show up and, you know, a client sees...
You're not just that YouTuber with yeah.
And again, it's not that you can't do amazing things with the DSLR, but when you get to that kind of like commercial world, if you show up with a little 5D package,
You're not getting in.
Yeah.
You won't get the job in the first place.
Right. Shifting gears.
Shifting
a
gears.
little bit. This is one of the last topics we'll touch on. But are you guys into crypto, blockchain at all?
Oh.
I know it's down.
It's
have
a sad
we?
day.
Do we
It's a
not
sad
want to
day.
talk about it? Because I know it's so down.
It's pretty bad. I think it's 8,500 right now. On Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I may have checked right before
Ethereum
we.
is hanging on.
Yeah.
But it's not good.
I
It's
know,
not
I
good.
know.
It's correcting, but it's not good.
Yeah.
Very
I mean,
sad.
okay, so let's not talk about.
Let's talk about the positive stuff. Let's
Yes.
pretend it's a month ago and I made a bunch of money.
So yeah, I've been watching it since. I mean, I think I threw a little bit into it when it was at like 4,000. So it's been really fun, or when Bitcoin was at 4,000, and it's been really fun to watch the prices go up and down. But I think the more intriguing part is seeing all these companies coming out, the legitimate ones, not the pump and dump ICO schemes, but the legitimate ones kind of opening up our eyes to the technology and what blockchain has in store for the future. And it's been really cool to see things that maybe aren't applicable to real life right now, but the possibilities. So do you guys have anything you're keeping an eye on for, or any way that blockchain maybe could affect our daily lives as content creators, or anything that just gets you excited about the technology?
There's some things. I think, I mean, you can look at like Kodak coin would be like, oh, we're trying to revolutionize the way the copyright and people are being paid. Like, there are interesting ideas. I think for the most part, it's a lot of hype without a lot of substance behind it right now. But I also think that, I mean, crypto has been around for, I don't know, 6-7 years, however long.
2008.
I know I first started messing around with like Litecoin back in like 2013, and that was, you know, back when, you know, everyone's, you know, the first time that the mining boom kind of really took off. I was like, this sounds like it would be an interesting video. But I still think it's early days. I think that there's a long ways that things can go, and I think that it's an interesting technology. I'm not totally sold that it is absolutely the future and that there's a lot of use for it. I think that there's definitely a lot of potential in it, but I think that anyone who is super, super excited that this is absolutely going to be a thing in the future, like, I'm not quite that convinced yet. It's interesting though. There's a lot. I would be surprised if it goes away. I just don't think that people have gotten a little too excited. I think that that's part of the reason why prices are coming down, because I think things are starting to kind of normalize. And yeah, I mean, you know, when things go from like $900 to $18,000 in a year, there's probably some corrections that are coming that way. So
I think it was probably the weirder part is like people were getting excited at the idea of making a quick buck as opposed
making
to
money
Sure,
off
absolutely.
of it, opposed to the technology.
Go mortgage the house, put it in Bitcoin.
That 50 Cent story was amazing.
Oh, that 50 Cent story was amazing. Yeah.
So how much money did he make off of
I
that?
think it was $8 million. Because I think he was basically taking Bitcoin payments for his album, which was 2015, 2016, something like that.
No way.
I think that Bitcoin at the time was, like $400 or $500. And then I guess he just totally forgot that he had the account and checked. It's like, oh, here's $8 million. Cool. I forgot I did that.
50 cents.
What a legend, man. What a legend.
I know. Signing off here. Do you guys have anything to say to the aspiring artists out there, or not necessarily the aspiring YouTuber? I mean, everyone I feel like wants to be a YouTuber, but there's also a lot in this audience who are either just entrepreneurs or artists in the physical space, where they're painters or designers, graphic designers, wanting to make their art their living. And that's something I think we've kind of all, achieved at where we are. And is there any word of encouragement, or maybe, your aha moment or something you can offer them?
I feel like I'm actually going to push this back to you, because you have blown up in a completely incredible way. I don't think I've ever seen someone who has the same level of hustle that you do. And I think that that's something that a lot of people really underestimate. I think the idea that, yeah, sure, you can be incredibly lucky and get like a big hit or kind of get some traction. But if you look at anyone who is reasonably successful or even like hugely successful, there's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of hustle that goes into that. I feel like I see you more than I see a lot of friends that like in my personal life, and like you live on the other side of the country. City. You're all over the place. But I think that there's a huge lesson to be learned there, and that you wouldn't be half the places that you've been. You wouldn't be anywhere near where you are today if you hadn't put all that work in and kept going and just never stopped. And I think that that's probably the biggest lesson that anyone can take. And of course, that's not what people want to hear necessarily. It's like, oh, just work harder. But I mean, you can't work in a bad way. I mean, you don't want to spend all your effort on something that doesn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I think that if you see an opportunity, you're excited about it, you're passionate about it, and you really sort of put 110% in it, then go for it. You can't just expect like, oh, this is a great idea, I'm going to do it an hour a week on my, my lunch break or something. It's like, okay, good luck.
Have to go all in.
You have to go all in, yeah.
So. Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you to you guys. And honestly, I feel like the tech community has been like very open arms to me, which has been really cool. It's been fun. But
I think people get surprised at that.
Yeah. It's not that hard of a club to get into. It's not like we're like, we have like the robes and like the secret chants and stuff like crispy.
Oh my gosh. Well, no, I think Because a lot of people focus on the wrong thing. I think people focus on the moment that they're going to get all of their attention. But they don't think about, okay, well, when I get that attention, what is my body of work going to look like? And so in the beginning for me, it was a lot about, I loved making videos, and I wasn't necessarily in front of the camera, but I loved being behind the camera. And I love documentaries. I have a passion for just highlighting artists. So I had a lot of stuff on my channel that was quality, and I was doing stuff that other YouTubers weren't doing, but it necessarily didn't fit on YouTube. But when that moment happened, people were able to come to my channel and be like, oh, she doesn't only like have travel videos, but also like docu-series, and this is interesting. So it kind of gave people a reason to stay. And it does help that I love it. I think a lot of people kind of like, okay, YouTube is a good platform, but I like to like sew or make clothes, so I have to learn to edit. And so for the people like us who actually love the process of filming and editing, it's fun for it. Exactly. So it's been a lot of fun to just keep going, especially with like this podcast. I'm stoked for audio and doing this kind of stuff and having conversations with people like you guys who don't necessarily have everything figured out, but your track record has shown you got things figured out, So what about you, John?
It's very gracious. We don't have anything figured out.
No, you're good.
I think the biggest thing, like for me, that I've learned is that because it's like a fine line of balancing confidence, but also like remembering that there's always someone better than you.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is like wanting to surround myself with people that are better. That's where you learn, and you can't always think like, you are the greatest or things like that. So that would be probably my biggest advice. Obviously like there's a cliche, work very hard. But working around people, like talented people, I think does two things. One, it elevates you, and two, like it's going to inspire you. And like for me, I think we get so lost in the day-to-day, like you kind of lose track of like, not the fun, but Marquez came down with a Tesla 3 the other day, and it was kind of one of those things where he's shooting and we're shooting, and it was cool just to be in the environment. And we do less of that now, but that's kind of like I think what helped us all get into this is being around each other and not having any egos.
That's good. And especially for people who want to get into a certain field, I think everyone has a little bit of time that they can offer to someone to be like, hey, do you need help editing just talking parts? Let me give 2 hours of my time every day to help you with that. Or just going to someone who is successful in the field and offering your work to them. You're going to learn a lot just on site and being around people. And that's how I learned a lot of video stuff. Was I was in the scene of music, so I was around a lot of creative people, and I started to be like, okay, my band needs music videos, so I'm going to make music videos. And there was a person to the left and right of me that I was able to ask, like, hey, sorry to bother you, but in Premiere, when this thing happens, it helps to have people around you that can just give you the answers like that, and motivate you along the way. So I think that's powerful. And okay, one last thing, Jonathan, I've been seeing you tweeting at Peter McKinnon. So I think you guys need to make a video together. Like hands down. Have you been talking to him at all?
No.
Does that okay?
I've not
So
talked to him yet.
what's the video that you're gonna shoot with Peter McKinnon?
Live pitch. I like it.
And y'all are gonna be BFFs. We're gonna send him this video.
Obviously, I think Peter does an amazing job, but I try to like not bug people. I try to let like.
But at the same time, I could see you two guys hitting it off and like making the most awesome video ever.
No, yeah. But like I'm a huge fan of like letting like the world and like
Gotcha.
the universe like.
I think this is the universe saying it's time.
Sarah DIETSCHY, officially the universe.
I think this is it. What's this Austin Evans embarrassing story? We have 5 more minutes.
Okay.
If you guys do.
Rapid fire real quick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna preface this by saying like this was back like at the peak worst of all of my health stuff. So it was a CES, but it was a very like miserable CES. Because of all like that problems, like my face was swollen and I just was not feeling very good at all. And there was, at the time, it was when Rev 3 was a huge thing. They had all the YouTubers, so it was this Rev 3 after CES party. That was when Soldier Knows Best was huge, and they had Ty Moss, and so I went there. I see Austin, and he is just like the most excited person on the planet. Just like, hey.
Imagine a baby version of me running around being super excited with a way oversized
What year
shirt
was this?
on.
What?
Oh, this was 2012?
Okay.
2011, 2012, something like that.
And I felt really bad. I just felt really bad, like physically. And he's like, "Yo, Ty's here. Come say hi. Come do this. Come do this. Come do this." And he's like, "Nixie Pixel's over here." And I had heard of her, but I didn't really watch her content. And I didn't want to come off like an asshole. I didn't want to be like, let me introduce you. He was like, "You got to meet her. Come hang out." And I was like,
I was a little excited.
I was like, I don't feel good. And I was like, can we not do this? I don't really watch her stuff, and I don't want to be, rude, and just come off like, I'm very quiet and shy. So sometimes like my low key and monotone comes off like I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
I'm just very quiet. Yeah. So I was like, I kind of like, please no. And he essentially grabs me by the arm. And drags me over. He's like, "Yo, John, this is Nixie. Nixie, this is John." And it was like, she didn't know who I was. And it was just this really awkward encounter. And it wasn't my finest moment, but I got a little upset at Austin.
Just a little bit.
I think I have a little bit of Austin in me, where if I see like two people that have to know each other, it's like regardless of the situation, let's make this happen. But you have to account, especially, so my boyfriend, John Hill, who is a YouTuber, he's the similar shyness, but sometimes that comes off as like being a jerk to people.
Yeah.
And you just have to be, especially like people like us, we have to be conscious of that and sensitive to that, But wow, that's a good.
It was a good learning moment for me because
Yeah.
I realized that was not okay and that a little over the line.
Right.
John he put me in my place. It was good.
I'm sorry for that.
We're still friends. I learned.
It's all good. You guys are crushing it. Where can people find you? What is YouTube channel and also your favorite social media after that? Where can they find you?
YouTube.com/TLDworks. Nice short. Or I'm going to say, I don't know. I think it's like Instagram or Twitter.
Oh, double dipping. I see how it is.
You can do both. You tell them both.
TLD today.
Perfect.
It's just youtube.com/Austin Evans, and my favorite social network is definitely Twitter,
I
where
love
it's
it.
Austin, not Duncan.
Austin, not Duncan. Maybe you'll tell the reason behind that username another time.
Next episode
of the Creative Exchange. Make sure to subscribe to this on Apple. It's on Google Play. It's everywhere where podcasts are. But also there's a YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, let me know if you like this video and hit that subscribe button down below. Everyone's links are in the show notes and also the description. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me.